Wow, there's more of you than I thought. Good morning, happy Easter. My name is Kluball, for those of you who don't know me, and I've been asked to share a little bit about the power of God and how that's affected my life. And I'm already on the verge of tears, so I'm going to do my best to choke those back and get through that. I want you to know this has been an extremely difficult thing for me to write, because I didn't want to just come up here and say the words. I didn't want this to just be a story. When I leave this stage, I wanted you to feel the power of what God has done inside of me. I wanted you to know with everything, every bit of who you are, that I am not the same person. But those of you who know that power already know there are no words. That our lives are our testimony. That's our job. And so I've asked God to come here with me today. He's right here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And so I know that whatever you are meant to hear from this testimony, you're going to hear whether you want to or not. And you know, I'd love to look out at you all, because that's how I connect to people, but I'm kind of wordy, and my husband says full of hot air. So I'm going to read and stay stuck to the script, or we'll be here all day, and I know you got Easter eggs to go look for. So with me, there's only one place to start, and that is that I am a recovering alcoholic and addict. Now, I want you to notice it's real important that I didn't just say that I'm a drug addict, because I am an addict in every single sense of the word. That means when I'm not abusing drugs and alcohol, I will shop until I drop. I will spend every single dime in my pocket. I will become addicted to relationships. Food is a good one for me. Exercise, you name it. The list goes on and on and on. However, I did have a drug of choice, and it was actually a drug, and it was called cocaine. Straight from Satan. I'm going to throw that in. That's not in the script. I have a dual diagnosis, which means I also suffer from depression. So for me, getting sober is a great place to start, but it's just a place to start. If both things are not treated at the exact same time, my chances for relapse are certain. The same pain that brought me to use to begin with is right there waiting for me. It smacks me right in the face, and I'm right back where I started from. So for me, everything started at the age of 12 when I took my first drink. I remember that drink like I took it yesterday. I remember it made me feel fabulous, and I was concerned at the same time, because even at the age of 12, I instinctively knew that this was going to change life as I knew it. I didn't know how, I had no clue, I just had a gut feeling, and I remember that. I was just a few months away from my 13th birthday, and by the time I turned 13, I had found my drug of choice, which, as I mentioned before, was cocaine. Once I started, I maintained a relationship with addiction for 22 years. During that time, I destroyed every good and positive relationship that I had in my life. I robbed, stole, cheated, and ran from everyone in my life that loved or cared about me. Every decision I made, every relationship I formed, every single thing I did was centered around my addiction. And during the course of that 22 years, I was beaten, strangled, stabbed, and left for dead. And as a result, by the age of 18, had endured the largest rape case in California history, in which one of the defendants received a 50-year sentence, which was the longest prison sentence ever at that time for a rape case. I had overdosed several times and been dropped off and left in front of an ER unconscious. They never knew if I was going to be dead or alive. Been mentally, physically, and sexually abused. Locked up in a mental hospital. I had been homeless and incarcerated 3 times. I had been in 6 different drug rehabilitation facilities, one of which I was physically and sexually abused in by my counselor. And I had been in a re-educational facility for hardcore drug addicts and convicts. I had been married and divorced, had 2 young sons, no job, no home of my own, no friends, family that refused to watch me kill myself any longer, and I had lost every single material thing that I had ever acquired when God decided that's enough. With the help of my mother and father-in-law at the time, who gave me a safe place to live with my children, I managed to buy a car and get a job. And that's where I met Kevin. And once again, life as I knew it was going to change. When I first met Kevin, I knew from our first date that he was someone that God had purposely placed in my life. I had moved in with him after just a few short months and had started drinking and using again. After our first year together, he told me through tears that he loved me, but he couldn't live with my drinking and using, so I stopped. I began attending AA on a regular basis, and that's when my control freak revealed herself. I dove into everything. I had no clue who I was, only what I thought people expected of me, which was perfection, so that's what I strived for. I had to be the perfect mother, the perfect girlfriend, the perfect daughter, friend, employee, the perfect person. And let me tell you, that's a lot harder than being an addict. I had to look right, act right, appear right, because inside I knew I wasn't all right. I just didn't want you to know. I was physically, emotionally, and spiritually drained, and inside I was empty because none of it was fulfilling for me. It was just a show for you. I told myself I had no value. I was worthless and I wasn't good enough. And on the outside, I screamed and yelled at everyone and became impossible to live with. Instead of drinking, I binged on food and soon became bulimic and was at the gym every single day. After 5 years and daily threats of leaving, Kevin couldn't take it anymore. He came home one night. I screamed at him for some stupid reason, told him I was leaving. He walked into my closet, pulled my clothes out, put them in the back of his truck and said, "Where do you need me to take you?" I thank God for Terry and Seth for opening their home to me and my 2 boys for the next year. No questions asked, nothing expected, because the next year would prove to be one of the most difficult and soul-searching years of my life. And although we remained separated, Kevin and I maintained a relationship off and on over the next year. And the following year made the decision to get married. And it's just in the nick of time because right around then Terry wanted a divorce. I had managed just over 9 years of sobriety when an excuse to relapse too good to be true fell into my lap. My oldest son was leaving for the Army. My 2 children that were still at home, Jake and Kevin, were now teenagers and had always been extremely independent, both of them. And that became blatantly clear once Nick left, and no one seemed to need anything anymore. Satan told me I was irrelevant. I had put my entire identity into my children and no longer had anything to hide behind. I felt exposed. I felt empty, useless, and worthless. And I was angry. All the uselessness, emptiness, and worthlessness and pain I thought I had left behind had all just been sitting there, patiently waiting for this day. And one night, I went straight to the refrigerator and I opened a beer. Within an hour, I had found cocaine again. This would begin a 3.5-year roller coaster of the worst possible addiction and hell I could ever have imagined. During this time, I tried to commit suicide twice, nearly succeeding once, spent thousands of dollars that was not mine to spend, spat in my friends' faces, and I destroyed my family. This time, there wasn't even a question of wanting to stop. I knew I couldn't. I knew without question the only way out was to die. I begged Kevin to divorce me in order to protect himself, and instead, Kevin did something that I not only never expected, but in my mind I didn't deserve. He stayed. And he left me when I was unlovable. He risked everything for me. And when I said earlier that my husband was a gift from God, I meant that, but I never realized at the time just how true that was. Kevin never said out loud, "This is the foundation of our marriage. Our marriage is built on the rock.
Kevin showed me. When it hurt so bad that he wanted to run as fast as he could and never look back, he didn't. Instead, he trusted God and gave God the power to restore our marriage. He stepped out in blind faith when everything he believed in had been destroyed and gave God the power to make it new. Kevin showed me what the word commitment meant. He showed me what it means to have faith. He showed me unconditional love, and in that love, God revealed himself to me.